No.
Welcome to the first edition of Simply Cooking. My name's Mike Hayes, and the purpose of the show is to show people that cooking's not difficult. Anyone can do it, everyone can do it. Everyone can make pastry, everyone can make so-called exotic dishes. Now what we're going to demonstrate today is Texan Quiche. A little bit of a contradiction there, Texan Quiche, because it contains hot peppers and of course cheese and egg, as you would expect. And I found this recipe when I was in New York. I think it was 30 years ago on the subway, strangely enough. Found a magazine. There was an article about the then young actress Tatum O'Neal, and her favourite dish was Texan Quiche, and that's what we're going to make today, and I promise you, you'll love it. The ingredients, very simple. We obviously need flour for the pastry, and the butter I took out of the fridge some time ago to have it on room temperature, and an egg will be going into that as well. We've got the hot part of the recipe, the chili peppers. I'll say more about those later. Eggs and grated cheddar cheese for the filling. Just like to say one thing about the cheese. You can use Gruyere and Gruyere, and you can also use Emmental, but they tend to sort of form what I call a credit card plastic layer, and cheddar retains its nice chunky cheddar taste. Okay, pastry. Now, if you want to buy your pastry in the supermarket ready-made, I don't mind. But believe me, it's easy. Once you get into the habit of making your pastry, 10 minutes maximum, you've got wonderful pastry. What do I do first? Butter's at room temperature. Then I mash it with a fork, ordinary fork, because I want it nice and creamy. Now, if I was making, I'll tell you what, I'll just put something under that. If I was making sweet pastry, I was making tarte au citron or tarte tatin, apple pie, I just put 50 grams of sugar into the butter while I'm creaming it. So, it's a couple of minutes work, depends how long it's been out of the fridge. That's okay, nice and creamy. Don't forget, sweet pastry, you put sugar in there. Now what I want to do is split this egg, because I want to put the yolk in the pastry mix. Now you can buy very exclusive things in the supermarket and the shops to split eggs, egg strainers. What I do, and almost when we go all wrong now, what I do, I simply break the egg, put the yolk in my hand and strain it through my fingers. It's that simple. And what I'm doing is putting the white into the egg mixture, which is going to be the filling for the quiche, because I don't like wasting. So, got my egg yolk in here, just put those back over there. Mix it up. Just for a second, just to make sure the egg is incorporated into the creamed butter. Okay, flour. The formula is very simple. Twice as much flour as butter. I had 100 grams of butter. I'm going to put 200 grams of flour in. And I got one of these sexy little scales I found in the supermarket. If you put your bowl on it and switch it on, it says 0. It compensates for the weight. So then you don't have to use something else. You can put your flour straight into it. Almost there. A little bit more. So don't forget the formula. Twice as much flour as you have butter. I've got 100 grams butter, and I want 200 grams of flour. Tablespoonful is usually about 50 grams as a guideline. Right, it's not rocket science. Leave the flour there because we need that later. Switch my scales off and mix further with the fork. Now this is just to make sure that the flour and butter mix are right. A little tip, before you use your hands, just rinse them under the cold tap. That chills them so that they're not too warm, won't affect the butter. Dry them thoroughly and then just start rubbing the mixture quite strongly between your fingers and your palms. Make sure there's no butter left stuck to the side of the bowl. Just give it a good scrape all the way around and the bottom. And why we're doing this is to make sure all the butter is incorporated into the flour. And we're almost there. So you can see it's very simple pastry. As I said, you can buy it in the supermarket, but why bother when you can make pastry which is going to taste 10 times better and give you much more satisfaction, of course. People will say, did you make this pastry yourself? You'll say, yes. They say, oh, that's very good, isn't it? Okay, that's a nice breadcrumb mixture. And don't forget, if it was sweet pastry, I would have mixed 50 grams of sugar with the butter. Right, now, this is the tricky part, or the sticky part, some people may say, because what I've got to do now is add water. Now, this is the other part of the formula, and I always add 1 tablespoonful of water for every 100 grams of flour, which I'm now going to contradict completely. There's the first one. Now, one of the things that goes wrong a lot is you put too much water in, you get this sticky mess, which is a problem, which means more flour, which may mean more water. So always put in a little less water than you really need. So this is about 1.5. Then I get a knife and stir. And this is of course nothing special, this is the way a mixer, you have one of these smart mixers, the way a mixer would do it, by using a blade. You see all the crumbs around the edge, just shake it up a bit so it all gets well mixed. And it always surprises me that so little water has such an effect on so much flour, because you're not really putting much in, but it spreads like wildfire. Sorry about that. Now this does look a bit dry. What I do is to test it, is just take a handful and knead it and see what that's like. You see it's too dry still. So a little bit more water, coming closer to my original, but again, just the bottom of the spoon, and continue to stir. Now you've got to be patient with this, because you may have to put a little bit more in again. But every time you put more in, make sure it's a very tiny drop to avoid the sticky problems of sticky pastry. This isn't that too bad actually. This is the hardest part of making the pastry, and the longest part as well. Okay, I'm going to knead that now. Okay, so what I do is make a little ball, and then it looks a little bit dry, but I'm going to say that's okay. So now we get it all into one big lump. Give it a few squeezes. There are some schools of thought which say if you knead pastry too much, it becomes tough. Well, I'm not a member of that school. I believe in kneading it to make sure all the ingredients are well incorporated. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? When you make your first pastry, you're going to be so chuffed, so pleased. Right. So normally I'd use a round dish, but if you're on your own, if you live on your own, buy a small dish. Don't make these enormous round things yourself. Buy a small and just make half or 60% portions. Otherwise it stays in the fridge too long, goes off, or you eat it too quickly and get too fat. What I usually do when I've done the pastry, if I'm using a round dish, I'll make a sort of hamburger form of it. So when I roll it, it'll stay round, roughly. It makes life easy. Because this is oblong, I'm going to make an, as I keep saying, it's not rocket science, but okay, that's ready to be rolled and put in the pie dish. So just put that there for the minute, and let's give this a bit of dry. Here's the pie dish. Two things you have to do with the pie dish is, I'll just go over here to get the butter, is butter it and flour it. This prevents your pastry from sticking to it while it's cooking. It's quite simply a bit of butter like that, and then with a piece of kitchen paper, clean kitchen paper, just spread that out so the whole inside of the pie dish is greased. Okay, and then this is magic, another very expensive accoutrement, a tea strainer, a little bit of flour. And what you've done is made your own non-stick surface, so your pastry won't be sticking to the bottom when you try and serve it. Okay, now we're going to roll the pastry. We're approaching cooking time, so always remember to switch your oven on. 180 degrees, pre-warm it, and I always do my cooking in the bottom half of the oven. That's warming up. I hope you're following this and taking notes or recording the program so you can make your Texan Quiche yourself. Right, any smooth, clean surface you can use for rolling your pastry. Flour it, that'll stop your pastry sticking and make it slide over the surface while you're rolling. Roll 90 degrees, roll 90 degrees, roll, turn it over 90 degrees. Why do you keep turning it over and turning like that? Because then you're going to have a better chance of a nice equal thickness, because you don't want it thick on one side and thin on the other. That's disadvantageous for the cooking. Something slipped in here, don't know what it is. A dead animal or something. Right, got rid of that. Now, people say, well, how do I know when it's big enough, Michael? So that's very easy. What you do is, so you can do it sideways as well, which will impress your friends with your talent. You get the dish which you're cooking in and just put it on the pastry. See, no, it's not big enough yet, so I've got to do a bit more rolling. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Keep the pastry rolling. That'll be for older people who remember rawhide. And I still have the song on my iPod, sung by Frankie Lane, a popular singer when I was a lad. Okay, that's big enough. So we're going to pick it up very carefully. Always treat your pastry like your lover. Gently, otherwise they break. Okay, and now just push it very carefully down into the corners. Again, gently, you don't want it to break. Now some people may say this is a little bit thick, this pastry, but I like a rather chunky pastry for quiche. Okay, and then we trim. He said, falling over a pan and breaking his leg. We trim. We don't trim like that, we trim like that. So there's always a little bit left hanging over the edge, which will take into account the shrinking. See? Just... Now if I'd made sweet pastry, what I'd do now is save this and I'd make some jam tarts for the grandchildren. But it's not sweet pastry, so I'm not going to do that. Right, look at that. Isn't that perfect? You'll have people from all over the neighbourhood coming around for your Texan Quiche. Get the fork and make lots of holes in the bottom. And the reason you do that is because if there is a bubble of air trapped in and you don't do that, it's going to be like a hot air balloon. So if you do this, this lets the hot air escape. Okay, we are ready for the filling. Just another little tip, you know, and not everyone agrees with me, but I rather like just cleaning up a little bit as I go along, so that when I'm finished, I'm not confronted with a very messy kitchen, just a little bit of a messy kitchen. Ingredients. We saw them at the beginning of the show, and I'm going to start with the first level, which are the peppers. Excuse me. Now I personally prefer fresh peppers, But being in France at the moment, they're very difficult to get, being in the middle of the countryside, so I use these hot chili peppers, which I got in the supermarket in a pot. Tip: when you clean your peppers, if you've got sensitive skin, wear latex gloves to protect your skin. If you're not careful and you've done peppers and you rub your eye or scratch your nose, you're going to have a problem because it's going to hurt you. So especially fresh peppers, when you're cleaning them, under a running tap, cut the bud off the end of the stalk, just slit them up one side, open them and rinse them out, rinse the seeds out under the tap. This will also prevent the burning, the nasty stuff sticking to your skin. Then, obviously I did these earlier to give them a chance to, then just put them between, okay, so they're dry, don't too much water or oil or whatever they were in their bottle. Just move those out of the way. Right, now we're going to chop these. Again, you see these top cooks, they go chop, 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 chop. You know, you can't see their hands moving, they're blurred. But I'm afraid I don't do it like that, because I'm old and grey and slow. So, and you do need a good knife, so always, if you're going to do some cooking, treat yourself to good kitchen knives. It'll be worth it in the end. Peppers have strong skin, so you've got to put a bit of pressure on. Go through, okay, turn around, and again they don't have to be very fine, it's just to give you the chance to spread them over the bottom. Now we spread these as evenly as possible on the bottom of the pie dish. It doesn't have to cover every square inch, square centimetre of the bottom, but it's nice to have it as equal as possible. Okay, that'll do. That'll do, yeah. Right, now ready for the other filling. In fact, I'm a bit of a miser and I don't like throwing anyone away, so we just chuck these bits in as well. And now, mesdames et messieurs, the eggs. 5 eggs, 4 or 5. I put 5 in because they're quite small. One of the neighbours in the village gave me them. She's got chickens in her back garden. And we're going to beat them savagely, I should point out. And the only thing I can beat. Whoops. Now, if you haven't got an electric whisk, it doesn't matter. You can use an ordinary one, but I must say this does save a lot of energy. That's done. Always let it run out there, because if you lift it up too soon, you get a nice spray of whipped egg all around the kitchen. What I used to do when I started making Texan quiche, or any quiche, was I put the cheese in there, pour the egg over it, but if you've got chunks, you know, lumpy bits in the cheese, you get lumpy bits in there. So what I do now is, I mix the cheese, being a clever clogs, with the eggs, to make sure that it's all amalgamated, that's the right word, incorporated, spread around a bit. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? My mouth waters as I look. If I wasn't a civilized sort of guy, I'd eat that now, just like that. But there's all these people watching. Right, never mind about that. Spatula, also very handy. If you look carefully, you see I put this in something too hot once, but still it does the job. And now, just move this over to my working area. Now I just carefully pop that in there. Doesn't that look fabulous? Spread the cheese out. Do it carefully, because our family unfortunately has got clumsy genes. The genes make us clumsy, I suppose. I got that from my mother. And sometimes I will think I'm doing something gently and will finish up on the other side of the room. Okay, Texan quiche going in the oven now. 30 to 40 minutes, one says. I have what I call a hot oven. Now my 180 degrees seems to cook much more quickly than the oven I have in Amsterdam at 180 degrees. So this goes in for 30 minutes and then I check it and then see if it needs the other 10 minutes. That's it. Now, I'm going to get a glass of wine, wait there one moment, and see you in virtual time in 30 minutes and in actual time in about 30 seconds. Cheers. She's disappeared. Well, in a flash, we're back. 40 minutes has passed. I said check after 30 minutes to see if you're happy or not. I checked 10 minutes ago. It wasn't quite ready. I in fact moved it up one level in the oven just to accelerate the cooking. And if my dog Daisy gets out the way, we shall now see. Thank you, Daisy. Look at that. Isn't that just fantastic? Now, unfortunately, I can't cut it now because it's too hot. What I like doing with my quiche and with a lot of my other tarts is let them cool down and then chill them. And I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty talking because my mouth is watering. I just can hardly wait. And being a bit of a pig, I could most probably eat that on my own in one go. But you'll love it. Texan Quiche. Right, that was the first edition of Simply Cooking. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you realise that things like pastry are all pretty easy stuff to do. And that you're maybe on your way to becoming simply a cook. Thanks a lot. See you again sometime. Bye for now.